there, and welcome to another episode of the Recruitment CEO's Insider Guide. Now, if you are a recruitment business owner or leader who is feeling the pressure of unpredictable months, booming 1 minute, barely even breaking even the next, then this episode is going to speak directly to that. So today I am here with the great Jane Pettit. Jane, welcome. Great to see you again.
Hey, Katie, how you doing?
All right, it's always lovely to have these sessions with you. So today, guys, we are going to walk you through 5 specific patterns that we see inside recruitment businesses today. This is in the marketplace today, and these are currently causing cash flow issues. Now, here's the thing about them. They're not surface level problems. These are actually deep-rooted structural gaps, or maybe just ways of working that used to serve but no longer do. So with each one, what we are going to do is we're going to talk to you about how that can play out in your business. How will you know if this is happening for you? What causes it and what can you do instead? So it's going to be a lovely practical guide. We're going to be giving you a lot of takeaways, and we'll be sharing real stories from recruitment business owners who have already made these shifts and the kind of results that you can expect when you do. So, Jane, shall we get into it?
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, so the first thing, and I say forgive me, I'm going to call it a mistake, but I always think, and we have a saying, don't we, in our business, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So the first feedback is, and here is what is happening right now in recruitment businesses that don't have this in place, is that consultants right now, you might have a team of people, and you see that these consultants are picking up every job that comes in the door. So regardless of quality, people are just taking the roles reactively, and this could be your clients coming back to you. It might be new clients in the industry. But what's happening is they take a brief or they take a client on, and there's no clear client commitment. So your team might be being spread thinly, working across, I don't know, 15, 20 jobs at a time, but maybe they're only placing 1 or 2 of those jobs. So the percentage of your job to fill rate will be low. In fact, I think it's fair to say most of the businesses that we see, or certainly businesses that we talk to before they come and work with us, their job fill rate is probably 10%, Jane? Certainly less than 20, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhere between about 8 to, if I see anybody over like 22, 23%, I'm normally excited.
Yes, exactly. We feel great for them. And there's more that can happen. So what happens is, and you'll know this because it is frustrating and is demoralizing for you and for your team. And this does really wreak havoc on your forecast, because you cannot see any predictable revenue coming in, because whilst you're working super fast and really hard on lots and lots of jobs, so there's a lot of energy going in, there's not a lot of results coming back or return for that good labor that you're putting in. Is that correct, Jane? Or what would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're one of the very few industries where we work on something without knowing we're going to get paid. I mean, you don't see the local boiler installation man installing 5 boilers with the view of being paid for 1. But we do all of the work in recruitment all the way up to invoicing.
Yeah.
And then if we don't do that final piece of the puzzle, then we don't get paid. And in some respects, I think we almost celebrate it. I mean, I remember going back moons ago, but I remember delivering a presentation to my team going, we're currently filling something like 38% of our jobs, and the industry average is around 30, isn't it? It was then, yeah. So I remember stood in front of my team going, we're doing epic. We're filling 38% of our roles versus the industry average of 30. But like now I look back in hindsight and go, so what I'm really saying is we failed 62% of the time. And not only did we fail, I invested in a team of recruiters to go and waste 62% of their time. When you start to put that into cash flow, what I would argue is old me could have probably got rid of her. Like, that's harsh. I could have probably worked with one less person on the team and taken 40% less jobs that I was never going to place that were just keeping somebody busy.
Right. And the thing about that is, and actually, by the way, the industry standard's not 30%. It's way lower than
Is
that.
it really? Good
Yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah. So I would say, you were doing well on a contingent basis, but you're absolutely right. You might as well be setting fire to money in many ways if we're working jobs that we're not filling. How did your team feel about that when you made that statement?
Well, I think because I was delivering it in a this is a great, like we're above
Uh,
industry, everybody was like, yay, we're doing really well. Whereas the team at the time, I don't think would have ever thought. But I do remember at that time, everybody, we were busy. Like, we were
yeah,
really
yeah.
busy. And it's that kind of when you get high, when you put your feet up and go, God, I'm earning my money today, I'm shattered. But then you look at the revenue and you go, it does feels like we should have more money on the board. Like, why are we just scratching over target or just getting up to target? Like, don't get me wrong, we weren't doing badly, but this was way before COVID, before the words work-life balance were used frequently, and recruiters still work 12-hour days, and that's kind of how we sold the industry: work hard, play
Mm,
hard. But
mm,
even then, we were putting in long days networking with clients in the evening
mm.
and only filling 38% of our jobs. Like, the money on the table that we're leaving, and we were working, whereas I could argue we could have probably all done 6-hour days and just never taken them.
Yeah. And the thing about this is as well, isn't it, is, as a business owner, if you think about that, I'm paying people their salaries and I'm paying them their salaries, but actually, which is costing me money every week and every month. But actually, if they're not generating, if they're at productivity level of 30% or maybe less, let's say 8%, 10%, that's a frightening amount of money, isn't it? You're losing money because you're not making placements and you're paying out money on these on your team to
Yeah.
deliver against that. So you're paying them to deliver poorly. I mean, I'm not saying that they're they're doing a poor job. They're working in the way that they think is right. But the reality is, as you say, you're leaving a lot on the table.
And
So yeah,
sorry,
no,
there's
go
a
ahead.
mindset thing behind it as well, because we drive our recruiters through KPIs. So you've got to go and make the calls, you've got to win the
Mm,
jobs, and then you'll make the placements. But think about the recruiter that's sitting at their desk going, well, cool, I've got 15 jobs on, I'm really busy. But actually, if you're only going to place one of those, then the rest of it is falsified time. When I exited recruitment, I was a contractor. And Katie, you know this story well, because I was setting up a training company, but I needed the money that I could earn from recruitment to help me set up the training company. So I contracted a couple of days a week and went back to my good old roots as a consultant. um, it's a really different pitch when you're commission only and a contractor, because then you won't work any job. So when I sat in front of
mm,
clients and I would say, look, this job has to be exclusive, it has to be retained because I'm a contractor and I need to submit an invoice to the company that I work for, and I invoice by the hour and then I invoice on placement, and I can't possibly submit an invoice for 8 hours of work on a job that's with 3 agencies. That's an unfillable dream. And that mentality is one that I've drilled into my clients and recruiters since having it myself: is what if you were paying your own bills? What if this was paying your mortgage rather than the cozy basic salary that you get as a recruiter?
mm,
But we
mm.
also do still see this seep into our solopreneurs and our business owners, in that hope, the strategy of hope. If I've got 15 jobs, I've got a better chance of making money than if I've only got three.
Right, right.
Whereas both you and I would obviously argue the absolute latter.
Yeah, because it makes us feel safe.
Yeah.
But actually, reality is we're not. Because as you say, if you're working contingent, then you are only going to be paid if on delivery, on success. Um, and actually, with those types of jobs, it tends to be low fees, less commitment from the client. Um, and you're in that bum fight, as I call it, where everyone else is working the same job as you.
Yep.
So, and this is an interesting concept because I'm just thinking about people like Darren, for example, and his wife Tanya. And when they came, they were absolutely in this firefighting mode. Like they were taking on what he described as, unsuitable jobs, Katie. We're super overwhelmed on a day-to-day basis. We're unable to focus. Cash flow was a massive, massive issue for them. But they implemented what they call their traffic light system, which AKA we call in our world, our gold job strategy. And that is focusing on roles that match that ideal criteria, the ones that they know that they can fill with the clients that they know that they can fill. So it's a certain type of role in a certain type of location with a certain type of salary, probably, and certainly with a certain type of client. But the difference between that when you work that type of role, well, certainly for them, was, quarter on quarter, bang. As soon as they made that switch and they cleared out those roles that they weren't going to fill, they saw a 20% increase quarter on quarter. And I mean, dare I sound cliche, but the power of clarity and knowing what it is that you're going to work on. But that's, and that's not the only clients that we see making those kind of changes, is it?
No, God, no, not at all. And we call them tiny tweaks. It's just getting clear on where the money, if you're struggling with cash flow and you're trying to build in systems so that cash flow is no longer a challenge for you, you have to know where the money is coming from and then divert your attention to that and then creating more of the opportunity. I always say it's like my wardrobe, Katie. Now, actually, normally I talk about clothes not fitting, but at this moment in time, if I go into my wardrobe, for anyone that's been watching this podcast, you will notice my face has got a little bit thinner over the last 4 months, but I have a sea of size 16 to 18 clothes in my wardrobes and very few size 12s. I'm just using this as a platform to boast now, but I wear a size 12. Every time I go and get dressed in the morning, it sounds stupid, it takes me forever because I'm fishing around trying to find the clothes that fit me because I'm too scared to throw away my larger clothes in case I end up back there again. So therefore it takes me longer. When you're working, when you've got a sea of jobs in front of you, it will take you longer to make the money because there's too many distractions going, you might fill me. Maybe if that other agency doesn't get this. And how many times do we hear it, Katie, when somebody goes, I'm going to work on that later, but I've got to work on this really quickly because there's another agency, so I've got to work really fast. And I'm like, or you could just not work it at all and go find something better.
All right. So the shift here, everyone, is what we're talking about is having a higher fill rate with better clients and fewer jobs. It is that principle, less is more. So when you focus on quality, your job to fill rate goes up, your team are happier, you're happier, your bank account is definitely happier. And actually, you have a lot more hours back, believe it or not, because you're working less jobs. So it is easier for you to go and get more of the same types of jobs. So that is the first, if you like, is the first feedback. Now, let's talk about the second one. And I see this happening a lot where we see teams in businesses where they're flitting, and it goes hand in hand with what we've just been talking about on gold jobs, between industry levels, role types. Business development might be inconsistent. Clients don't see you as the go-to recruiter. Maybe they treat you like the CV service, not the strategic partner. And this is where you might be that you feel like your brand becomes, I'm going to use this example, right? Your brand is like a product on a supermarket shelf, and you're lined up next to about 20 other brands, and they're constantly being compared to you. So you know what? You're easily overlooked. You're not the Heinz. You're easily overlooked, and you're often competing on price.
Yeah.
So this is where you feel like you're trying to serve everyone. You're trying to be that generalist, and therefore you're being generally received. You are not being identified as that highly visible, clearly positioned, trusted advisor or boutique brand in comparison, that is able to command higher fees because your clients see your value. So this is all about, I mean, it comes at it from two angles, from your marketing point of view, but also from the point of view of clients understanding what your specialism is. Why should I come to you? So this is all about what we call your niche.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose this is what Sean's done, isn't it? Very
Yeah,
much. Sean came to
very
us,
well.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
probably incorporating both of those because he came to us with a lower job fill rate, and I do everything within a core vertical, but that vertical was still big.
Yeah.
And then we've gone through the process with him and got really clear on who it is he serves and where his like superpower is within the industry. We've then tested that niche, and now, well, we were talking about this the other day, weren't we? March, he's had his highest ever GP month. He's working at something like an 86% fill rate. And he's only working on roles that sit directly in that market. So they're able to then create more opportunity just based on the people they're speaking to day to day.
Mm.
Whereas what he will tell you is 6 months ago, he was working on anything and anything that kind of vaguely sat in niche. And you know, we joke about it on his coaching calls and they say, you know, I can't believe I did that. And I'm never going to do that again. So just that clarity, and people in his market now are coming to him. His BD is seamless because he's seen as
Mm.
the go-to market expert. And who doesn't
Yeah.
want clients knocking on their door?
Right, exactly. Because when you clearly define that niche, you're absolutely right. You become like this magnet because, from a marketing point of view, everything gets easier. You can speak directly to your clients' pain points. Your content becomes more relevant. Your clients can actually find you when they're looking for help.
Yeah.
So, you're helping them to find you, but also, I mean, we use that example of a GP versus a surgeon. If you got a knee problem and you got to have it looked at, what would you rather do? Do you want to go to a GP who's generally received, who's going to give you some general advice, who might suggest a few things, or do you want to go and see a surgeon who can absolutely pinpoint exactly what's wrong with it, and give you that direct help? Because today you can't afford to be in this, in the Red Sea of pricing, where you're just feeling like you're getting dragged down into the same pot as everybody else, and you will be generally received. You've got to command that specialism to really gain traction. And actually, let's give another example. Like Emma and Si, they built their positioning to speak to an audience directly. And that shift was massively dramatic for them. Their client
Huge for them.
relationships improved. Yeah, fees increased, business started growing again. Where they were struggling to gain traction and stretched across too many markets, they got crystal clear on who their ideal client was. And then they built their positioning to speak to that audience directly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is how Google works. Let's use
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah. Good.
If you want to, I don't know, if you're a mum and you want to find local football classes for your child, you will go to Google and go, show me football teams near me. And it will
Mm.
come back with football teams now near you. Now, if you're the children's activity provider that does football, gymnastics, swimming, I can't think of any other children's providers, you're
Mm.
not appearing at the top of Google ranking. You're not the go-to. And also, if I want a football provider for my son or daughter, I want to go with somebody that just does football. So, and that's true in every industry. But again, there's this fear, isn't there, in
Mm.
in
Mm.
recruiters. What if I turn down, I do finance recruitment, but somebody offers me a marketing job. Well, if I turn it down, what if they take my finance job somewhere else? Like, we are our own worst enemy sometimes in recruitment. I really think we get so worried about what we might miss. We don't focus on just becoming bloody brilliant at what we do.
Mm.
We're both of us from really niche backgrounds, Katie. We know the more we shout, I do this, and make it really, really clear. I met a recruiter the other day in my netball team. I said, what do you do? She said, I do recruitment. I was like, oh, there's one everywhere. I was like, what do you do? She told me, and I didn't know. Like, it's plain and simple. She told me what she did, and I didn't know. And I went, I'm really sorry. So what sort of people do you place? And she told me again, and I was like, I'm still like don't really like specifically what's your market expertise, and she just didn't have one. Simple as that. And future client pending, Katie, future client pending. But you know, the clearer you are, the easier it is to attract.
Yeah,
Simple as that.
absolutely. You got to stand out, and particularly in today's world when, oh my goodness, is there a lot of noise out there. So you got to make it easy for your clients to find you and your candidates. You know, we're not just talking clients; it's candidates as well,
Yeah.
isn't it? So that's feedback number two. So niche. Be a specialist. Stand out in that crowd. So let's talk about number three. Now, this is, I find this one fascinating right now because what I see happening in the outside world at the moment is there is a lot of, okay, I'm not sure I call it business development, but there's a lot of noise happening from an outreach perspective. Particularly on LinkedIn, you see it. You probably see it. Maybe you do it yourselves. Maybe you're seeing it on email. And the thing about it is, at the moment, there doesn't seem to be any kind of what I call rhythm to it. So it's usually when people haven't got opportunities that all of a sudden we get a little bit worried, and this mass reach out, this mass messaging starts to happen. Generic outreach where people, dare I say, I'm going to use the word spamming. And people get desperate, and so they are getting the messages out as quickly as possible. And right now, I mean, there's so many AI tools out there, Jane, and I know how you feel about this subject. So I,
For
I
another
may
day,
have
for
to
another
hold my
day.
tongue. Yeah, I may have to hold my tongue, or you may feel that it's opportunity to dive in. Um, with AI is that, and we've all felt it, right? I felt it. I'm on the end of it. It's like the old days, when you used to have cold calling, when people used to come and knock on your door and you'd be like, oh my goodness, I wish people didn't do that. Well, I seriously think there's a lot of that happening again now. And people are unfortunately being sold this dream of, hey, use this AI tool. And what it's going to do for you is it's going to create this amazing BD funnel. That's going to bring all these clients into your world. But actually what happens is people start using it and the opposite happens, and they repulse clients. It damages your reputation. And things don't get any busier at all. You're just doing a lot of activity, working really, really hard. And there's still no strategic or quality BD being done. So, and the good news is there is a smarter way to do this, because there is a way in which inside businesses right now that is happening where there is a daily rhythm of outbound but not spammy outreach happening. And the difference is this is about what we call relation based or relationship based even business development. This is about your network. This is about what you already have in your network. People who know you, who like you, who trust you. I don't have to do all three of those things, by the way. But if they do one of those, that is
We're
enough.
halfway there.
Yeah, you're halfway there. Exactly. So we're talking about past clients. We're talking about happy candidates. We're talking about people in your network that know you. They might know you through a friend. They might know you through work. Think of how many years you've worked in recruitment and how many years your business has been going. And think about the opportunity in that network. Because the difference we're talking about here is not the AI spray generic emails or LinkedIn messages to the market and hoping that somebody's going to come back and say, hey, I've got a job for you. What we're talking about is you showing up consistently, strategically, adding value to people, and adding value to people who already want to hear from you, who have bought from you before, who are faster to get to, who know, like, and trust you, but also who want to deal with you. They've already experienced your awesome service and they are very, very happy to do even more with you. But what we're talking about here is a cadence, and it's a rhythm to that process so that you create a pipeline flow. Now, Jane, I know you've got tons of people because this is your go-to strategy that you know and teach very, very well. Talk to us about some of the examples or how this works in principle in businesses that we see?
I think the thing, most recruiters come to us, and certainly when I open up coaching calls, everybody's talking about generating new business streams. I need new business. I need to go and get some cold business. And you are right, Katie. And this comes from being possibly a lazier recruiter. And I'm a bit like, but do we really? Do we really? Have we exploited everything that's beneath us? Claire came to us and said, I've got to generate more business out of some. I've got to find more clients. And then actually we tapped her into our warmer route, and we gave her strategy and a cadence around it. And then suddenly she was like, I don't need to do cold BD. It's like, no, you don't. There's enough in your network. And, that's what we call the magic of the fan club. But also now, if we fast forward on that strategy, so obviously, Claire's just opened up last month with her highest ever invoice revenues. And considering that, 3-4 months ago, we were having cash flow conversations, and where she is now is just unbelievable. But for even more fun, we're now systemizing that know, love, and trust. And Claire's not doing it. It's somebody else. But Claire shows up for the meetings, for the high value stuff. But actually, so we've now gone with a client in what was December, I think, when we started, who was sat there saying, look, I desperately need new business for my company to grow, for us to be a presence. We've got to go and win more. And then we decided, actually, no, we don't. It's all under our noses. And we gave her the strategy and the tools to be able to outreach that. And 4 short months later, we've now got somebody else doing that. So it's like a 360 turn, and the success is just coming in week after week after week. And there's nothing in this world that's easy. Katie, you know that I don't really think anything's easy, because you've got to take the time to learn it, implement it, plant the seeds, wait for it to grow, and follow up, and do a little bit more follow up. Then it pays off.
Exactly. This is the difference, isn't it, between what I would say is reactive and rhythmic, but also, especially for your team, it is a much nicer way to do business development, because it becomes part of what you do on a day-to-day basis. It's way more effective. And I mean, ultimately, of course, it leads to like monthly revenue, steady monthly revenue, and significant, shifts, but your team enjoy it. And as we say, we use a profiling tool with our clients, and we will say everyone leads, it's just the way in which they lead. Well, I believe everyone can do business development. It is ingrained in us. We are natural people. We as human beings, we have the skill to communicate, and so therefore we have the skill to do business development. It's just about the way that somebody does it. That for me is the difference. And so this is where, in a team of people, you can have resources doing business development. You can have delivery doing business development. It doesn't have to be this kind of, I think what we have is this profile of this maverick type of, business developer that goes and knocks down doors. I mean, I think gone are those days, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
because
that's not saying that, no offense to anyone who's really good at that. It's not saying that doesn't have a value. Of course, amazing if it does. But what percentage of people enjoy that? Really?
yeah, and also, is it? I'll tread carefully, but is it something that you grow out of? Like 23-year-old me, I loved a good cold call. 47-year-old me, not as keen on a cold call anymore. And if you are new into recruitment and recently graduated, you don't have that big network yet. Although we all do have a network, to be very clear. If you're 24 and out of uni, you've got parents and they've got networks. There is always opportunity hiding somewhere. But if you've got a couple of years work under you, then there is opportunity that is warm. And it's thinking about how do I harness that? How do I make this successful? And how do I make it a return in a way that's professional, that doesn't feel like I'm selling? Because if you are, I was just speaking to a client about this today, actually. If you're truly passionate about what you do, and you're truly passionate that you provide a great service, and if you're truly passionate, and I'm getting on my soapbox, which I always get on, but if you're truly passionate that what you do really helps businesses grow and really changes candidates' lives. Because let's face it, we spend a lot of time at work. Then that's not a pitch. That's just you saying, look, I'm going to work my ass off to find you the right people, and I'm going to really work with the right candidates to make sure the person that comes in is as excited as I am about your opportunity. Then yeah, we're selling, but we're selling with heart, and that's what people will buy. And that's when your fan club, your network will lean into you, because you'd rather deal with someone who's passionate. May have gone slightly off track there, Katie, which has never happened before in any of our podcasts.
No, but it's all you're absolutely right, and it's all valuable. Okay, I'm going to call this mistake because this was one of the biggest paradigm shifts for me in my recruitment career. And this is all around the 360 model because, rest in peace, the 360 model does not work. Anyone can try and convince me on that. It does not work. And here's for why, because we always use the football analogy. If you have got your team and you are asking them to do the 360 model, it is like having Ronaldo on the pitch, your A-star, shooter. Is that the right word? What is
Striker,
it?
shooter, you're asking the
Striker,
wrong
shooter.
person.
That's so bad. God, my nephew would be horrified I use that word. Striker. Um, so it's like having Ronaldo on the pitch, right? And your superstar striker, and you're saying to him, "Hey, Ronaldo, right? Okay, we're going to go out. We're going to play 90 minutes of football against this team. And what I want you to do is I want you up front, where you are most in flow, where you are superb, hitting the ball into the back of the net. Then I want you to run back. You're going to cover midfield for a third of the match. And then for the final third of the match, you're actually going to be in goal. And you're going to be making sure you stop and that they don't get any goals in. Now, realistically, one, that's not very good use of Ronaldo because he's your A-star player. But secondly, how is he going to feel about that?
Yeah.
Because he's going to be pulled in and out of flow. And that is what we are doing when we're working 360, because somebody is trying to juggle BD, juggle delivery, and then, juggle resourcing. And none of it is being done brilliantly. So the results are inconsistent and people are knackered, and, it leads to burnout. And it also means when you work a 360 model, and you'll remember this, Jane, is that you're putting all your eggs in one basket. Because if that person leaves, all your IP walks out the door in many situations. So we really want the fix, if you like, and this will definitely create cash flow issues. I mean, I think this is one of the biggest issues that you see in cash flow. Well, it was for our business, it was for us, and that's why we changed it, because it was creating the impossible task of actually improving the billings per head on individuals, because they were knackered and they weren't doing each of those functions really, really well. So let's just talk about an example of this and how that can play out. So I can definitely think of one, Jane, if shall I jump in first with my example?
Go.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of Emma and Si when they realized that having one person managing everything was limiting their team's performance. But also it was creating cash flow problems and it was stopping the business from growing. And so what they did was they restructured into a different model where they actually do have business development function that sits on its own. And then they have delivery that sits on its own, and then resourcing that delivers into it. So they chose what we call the 120 model, where you have people in those specific role types, in those specific functions. And I mean, that just transformed their results. They became stronger, they became more consistent. They did 22% uplift in less than 6 months. And that was actually having less team members in those teams as well. So this was about better structure. And it wasn't necessarily, even in that situation, there was no upskilling that happened. That was just a tweak in the process and the people being in different positions and really leveraging on people's expertise.
Yeah.
And that's really what this is about, isn't it? Because I don't know about you, like I know where you'd be in flow.
Yes. Yeah. It's about doing what you love, isn't it?
Yeah.
I work with an outstanding delivery consultant. And to my shame, because I can share with you so many mistakes that I've made in the recruitment world, every time we became low on jobs, every time that there was a whisper of a recession, anytime there was a market downturn, we'd be like, guys, we got to sell. And then I would take this outstanding delivery consultant. I mean, she was brilliant. And I'd take her and I'd be like, you've got to sell. And like I could hear her as she walked out the room going, I friggin' hate selling. Like, why can't I?
Mm.
And that was always the mantra, isn't it? To be good in recruitment, you've got to be good at sales. And it's like, but
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
you know, get me
I
to
don't know if I believe that anymore. I mean,
no,
you're
I don't believe it.
absolutely right because it was. I mean, that was how, you and I were brought up, wasn't it? Which is your top billers became your managers. And if you were
And
to
let's
be a
watch the
good
catastrophe that would unfold after
yeah,
that. Yeah.
if you were going to be a good recruiter, you had to be good at sales. I mean, fundamental. I can remember saying it's a sales job, and I still believe, that there is that aspect to it. But there's different ways of doing it, as we said earlier. Whereas I think right now in the world, and maybe it's the world as much as it is, the evolvement of recruitment, is that people have become we've changed, right? Generations change. And as you said earlier, gone are those days when I first walked into recruitment, it was so sales orientated. We rang bells. It was all about the rah, rah, rah. I mean, I often think, and by the way, this is probably not a great example because people are going to think that I'm like the Wolf of Wall Street. But that was similar to the environments in which we were working in. Not that we were doing that kind of thing, but you know what I mean. It was very much, wasn't it? Like being on that sales floor, ring the bell, jump up and
Yeah.
down, don't sit down, take your chair away from you. Well, I'm pleased to say no one did that to me. But the stories that you heard,
We used to in my first agency.
drinking shots,
Yeah, we used to sell standing up. I mean, I do still think you can still really well standing up, but we weren't allowed a chair until we'd closed our first job off.
There you go.
Many years
Exactly.
ago. Yeah.
Exactly. So have I digressed. Now I've digressed the
Well, no,
conversation.
coming back again to that 360, there is more to recruitment now. We're going back years now. We're talking about when, there wasn't
Oh,
LinkedIn, there wasn't all these different ways of getting candidates. You literally found the job, you advertised it, and then you either headhunted or you waited for CVs to be posted. That's what we're going back to. The role of a recruitment consultant now and the job, you've got to be IT proficient. You need to be able to use AI in a sensible fashion. You need to be able to talent source. You need to be able to
mm,
match well. You need to understand motivations. You could really do with some psychology. It's
yeah.
immense. Like the mind can blow in terms of what a recruiter has to
Right.
do. And why should somebody that's like awesome at standing in front of clients and selling a solution and closing, why should that same person be as good as going onto LinkedIn and spending 6 hours researching and trawling through profiles and looking for matches and sending outreach messages? That's not the same person at all. So I think you're categorically right. If you want to get a business that isn't feast and famine, you need to accept that people have got different skill areas and recruit accordingly. And I suppose to go back to what you said at the start, of this section, I always remember when I went on mat leave for the first time, and this is Katie when we worked together, and I sat in front of the MD at the time, and he said, "What's your biggest thing that you need to do before you go on maternity?" And I was like, "Oh, I need to create an SOP, and I need to write this." And he just went, "No, no, 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 no." And I went, "Oh, what is it?" And he went, "You build something like 295 last year. You need to, how are you going to replace that? Where's that coming from? Because the moment you have those babies, that £300,000 has disappeared, because who does that?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah," because it was all me. I did the candidates, I did the clients, I did the resourcing, I did the delivery. So when I went, off I went.
Yeah, exactly as you're saying, Jane. So, what we're saying here is if you're trying to work that 360 model, it's a risky model. Well, it's actually an expensive model to work because you are, people are busy doing everything, but fundamentally, you run that risk that, as you say, if your top biller walked out the room, all of that revenue is just gone. How do you make that up? God, I used to have so many sleepless nights every year
Yeah.
thinking, oh my goodness, who's going to hand their notice in this year? Or yeah, who's going to go and get pregnant? And it's
Sorry.
true. I did worry about that. I did worry about that because you're right. You can't make that revenue up. And so if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, that sounds like me, if my top biller walked out of the business tomorrow, what would you do? This is where you need to split those functions. So you create pods basically, and then it allows people to really get deep in one area, work in their flow state, work where they are most successful, work where they most enjoy. Our example of Ronaldo, striking and playing up front. And actually, you can build momentum that way. So that's what that mistake is all about. Now, the final one, Jane, and here's what this looks like, is on the outside. Okay, results are pretty patchy. 1 month, your revenue looks good. The next, it's off piste. Everyone in your team has their own way of working. There's no consistency in the client experience or the candidate experience. And again, actually, if somebody left, the wheels would come off. So this is about clarity, no clear delivery frameworks, no clear consistency across your team. So you might get one superstar that is great at recruitment that flies, but you haven't got this repeated in your business. We're
Yeah.
talking systems. Systems build freedom.
It's like the mood hoover in the room, isn't it? The mood hoover, because I mean, how many people do we speak to? And it would have been me as well, going, I don't need to train them. Like they're really good. They do it their way. They do it their way. But that's not a business. That's just people doing their own things and hiring a desk in your office.
Mm-hmm.
Think about McDonald's, a really, really good example of how repeatable systems work. And that's, the essence of the franchise model of McDonald's. But if you go to a McDonald's in London or in Paris or in Scotland, I guarantee you, if you go to the drive-through, the voice will come through the bodiless voice will come through and go, good, welcome to McDonald's. Tell me, have you ordered on the app today? And that's the first point of the script.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the drive-through window, by the way, guys, I don't go to McDonald's as often as what this sounds like, but I'm just giving you a really good example of repeatable, scalable systems. When you get to the window, they will repeat your order to you, and they'll hand out the card for you to zap. They won't even ask anymore if you're paying by cash. They'll just hand it out. You've got to break the process, and then you'll get to the end, and they'll give you a bag, and you will drive off happy with the mediocre meal that you've just purchased for a very small price. Now, I'm not saying we
With your
want to.
party hat.
Yeah, we don't want to be the McDonald's of the recruitment world, but what they have is scalable systems that can
Right.
be taught to
Right.
children. And let's get really clear, children. My son worked at McDonald's from being 16 and he's not allowed to go off script. Now,
Mm-hmm.
they're only selling a £2 burger, and you can argue that there's a sophistication in recruitment, but if you're not, if you're hiring teams and you're not telling them your business values and your ethics, and you're not saying, look, this is how we do a pre-screen, and these are questions that we ask at the end of every pre-screen, this is how we do control, then you're just hoping you're hiring good people. And more
Mm-hmm.
importantly, if there's a market downturn or something goes on in your niche that isn't popular, if you can't work out and if you don't have it written down what you were doing before, how do you know what to go back to? How do you know what part of the chain is now broken? And therefore,
Mm-hmm.
how do you fix it? And we've seen
Mm-hmm.
lots of that, Katie, recently with the
Yep.
explosion of AI into the world, of people trying lots of new things, but not tracking anything, not process
Yep.
mapping it, and then suddenly not knowing what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, it's so true because the other thing, just on that, you made me think about is the fact that I mean, when we work with people, Jane, one of the things that I find is how many, especially the small recruitment specialists out there, have got this magic way of doing what they do. Very
Mhm.
often, you know, the leader, the entrepreneur in that business started that business because, and maybe they were a top biller or they were just very, very good at what they did. They gave great service. And so their way of delivering that A-star, superstar service is very specific. And it's so specific that they do it unconsciously. They're what I call unconsciously competent at it. It's like they drive a car. They don't have to think about what they do because it's in the muscle. It's just such a learned behavior that they do it automatically. But then when they hire teams and they want the teams to do it in their way, they find it really, really hard to be able to explain what it is that they do. But secondly, to actually get people to follow their way. Like we were saying, you know, you get people that come in the Mavericks, or maybe they've worked in another recruitment business and they've learned the wrong way of
Yeah.
doing something, and then they bring it to your business and continue doing it in your business. When you know that your magic way is the way that you want your service
Yeah.
provided to and delivered to your clients. So what we're talking about here, guys, is putting systems into place that enables consistency in your team. And we're not talking about, they don't have to be, let's not mistake in this, because I think a lot of people feel like, oh my God, I'm not a systems person. I'm a really good recruiter. You know, I'm not a systems or a process person. And that's why I used the word framework earlier, because it doesn't have to be complicated, but it's the unique abilities, the magic that is within that process that needs to get teased out and put into a framework that then can be taught to your team, because that's how you scale. You've got to be able to replicate the magic that you want to replicate, but also that you know is the difference that makes the difference. I call it like your way, or you know, it's like the centered excellence way, or the I don't know, whatever your business is called way. It's about like Jane's saying, it's about how you do something. How specifically you do it, and there'll be questions that you ask. There'll be things that you do in your process that you're not even aware of that give it that real super like magic ingredients. So one of the things that really makes the difference when you're scaling is being able to replicate that to get the right results. And so this is what we're talking about, is taking one thing that you do, and sometimes it could be you're just going to take one thing that you're going to start with. Maybe it is actually, Jane, what did you just say? Was it candidate interviewing or
Yeah, pre-screening. So what questions do we ask at what point? Because if you've got, so if you either are the expert or you've got an expert in that team,
Mm.
then the language they use is the language that you want all of your recruiters. And not again to people saying none of this has to be complicated, but it's got to be somewhere.
Yeah.
It's got to be processed and mapped. So
Yeah.
I always joke that obviously, you know, working with yourself and Nikki for so long, there are some things that I say that I think I've invented, but I guarantee if we go back 2-3 years, you or Nikki will have said them to me first, and I'll have gone, they're the words that I should use. You know, if I'm trying to probe a client with limiting beliefs, they will be your words that I now take because you guys taught me. So we reenact them. Likewise in recruitment, you know, the sign I think of a scalable agency is where you go in and you stand in the corner of the room and you listen to the recruiters and you listen to them all close a call, and you should hear them all do something like, oh, while I've got you, tell me, we're recruiting for another role. It's not right for you, but it's a fantastic role, but it's more junior than what you are. I'm looking for a candidate who can do X, Y, and Z. Tell me who in your network do you know that could do that job? And you should hear that
Mm.
multiple times a day
Mm.
from multiple people in the business, because everybody has been taught how to ask for a referral for a job in a way that guarantees results. And whether the next person you hire has got 30 years recruitment experience or 3 days,
Yeah.
that's a repeatable process. That's how you systemize asking for a referral through humans. And
Perfect.
that's where I think lots of recruitment companies that we speak to or struggle with cash flow and don't have like somebody's doing it well, but,
Yes.
but nobody else is.
Yeah.
And there's no overcomplication on that, is the Katie? It's a case of, right, guys, we're all going to learn what they do, and
Yeah.
we're going to tell it, and we're going to say the words they say.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is so important, and I do appreciate there are people out there that maybe, like you're saying, whether it's McDonald's or have worked in another recruitment business, that maybe they feel, or maybe they didn't have any systems, um, or if they did, they're concerned that I'm not a systems person, so I don't know how to produce these. These are simple, like we're saying, they're frameworks, guys. They will scale up your business because you'll be able to train your team faster. You'll be able to ensure consistency for your clients and your candidates. So your delivery service will be better, and higher quality. You'll be able to charge more. There's so many things around it. And also, it's IP. It is value in your business, but it is the only way that you will scale. I
Do you know,
can't.
think as well, sorry, Katie, my intrusive thoughts are coming in, because I'm not a systems person. And I think, and dare I say, it's probably a topic for another day, but do we almost use this sometimes as an excuse to not do the things that we need to do? In any businesses that I've grown and scaled, I've had to sit and get really uncomfortable on some days when I'm out of flow and I'm not doing what I love. But in order for my business to move to the next level, I've had to bake that cake, eat that cake, and hate myself whilst doing that cake. And using the, if you'd have said to old recruiter Jane years ago, Jane, I need you to record all your systems, get them on the CRM, I'd have gone, I don't need to do that because, I'm all right at what I'm doing, thanks, type thing. And then I suddenly realized that actually, in order to lead a strong team, I needed to know what my team were doing at all times. I needed them to put the fecking notes on the system. So again, do we as business owners, and I suppose this for anybody listening to this going, oh God, like I said at the start of this segment, mood hoover, create systems and processes. But if you're sitting there going, well, that's not for me, I never wanted to run a business that had KPIs. I hated KPIs when I was a recruiter. And now you're telling me I've got to introduce them, or I don't want to work to a script. That's not me. You're a business owner and a founder. That might not be you. But if you want people to lead in your business, you're going to have to show them the magic. So if you're hiding behind those words of that's not me, I'd probably say this is the time to get the mirror out and go, but what if it was?
Mm,
What would happen to my business if I don't need to hire five me's? I need to hire five good people who can train. I can give them the words to convert to sales if they're sales, or resourcing if they're resourcing, because I've got processes in my business. They know what to do next. Sorry,
100%.
rant over.
100%. Do you know, I love that as a final thought on why, systems do not slow you down, they scale you up. That is the truth. I love that. Okay, so just some final calls. I just want to recap on those 5 patterns that we've talked about today. So, and these are the 5 patterns that, as we mentioned, will quietly kill your cash flow. So this is what we need to pay attention to. Saying yes to the wrong jobs was the first one. 2, being too broad in your market. Got to niche down and get clear on your avatar. 3, inconsistent business development. 4, outdated delivery service structure. And we were talking about the 360 in that, rest in peace. And 5, that lack of systems and processes. So if you see yourself or your business in any of these, please know it is definitely not about blame. It's about awareness. It's about responsibility, because these things are fixable, right? When you make these shifts, the difference in revenue, in momentum in your business can be huge. If you would like more support from your recruitment business, or you want to know our process, I'm going to pop the link below, which gives you the exact system to scale your business to 7 or 8 figures and more. And in the meantime, Jane, thank you so much again.
Anytime.
And we will see you guys on the next episode. So yeah, thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe if you don't already.
See
Take
you
care.
soon.